Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Advancement, and welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a very interesting show in store for you guys. Before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and sub to the channel. Now, today we're going to be talking a little bit about Max Kellerman, right? As you guys know, Max Kellerman was at ESPN for a number of years. And then eventually he joined, I think, ESPN First Take. I think it was in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. And he had a pretty good run on this show. But then ultimately we found out that Stephen A. Smith didn't like having Max Kellerman on the show. And ultimately he confessed to trying to get him fired on multiple occasions. And eventually that's what happened. And then once the news broke, Stephen A. Smith further solidified that information and basically said that's exactly what I did. Then he basically went on a tour of telling people why Max Kellerman wasn't even qualified to be sitting next to him. And it was a move that a lot of people were upset with, and a lot of people called him out within the industry, especially people like Marcellus Wiley, who was a former partner with Max Kellerman, I believe on ESPN Radio. They used to have a radio show together in LA, right? So since Max Kellerman got let go of or got fired during that, when they were downsizing at ESPN, when they were cord cutting and they got rid of Jalen Rose, all of these big names, we haven't heard much from him since. Now, I have tried to ask Marcellus Wiley on occasion, hey, what's up with Max? He's like, man, Max is chilling, right? But this morning, I was going through the internet and I came across a pretty interesting report from Awful Announcing. And this article and this report basically was covering some comments that Brian Kenny made regarding Max Kellerman. And essentially what he was saying is that Max Kellerman is set to reemerge towards the tail end of this year, and we should be expecting Max Kellerman back in the sports media space. And I was like, wow, this is very exciting news. And I would love to share some of the comments that he had with you guys. But before we even get into the audio of him speaking about this, today's video is brought to you by our sponsor, GameTime. GameTime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. For example, I am super excited about the upcoming MLB games. With GameTime tickets, I can easily pick the best tickets for me. I love that I can choose between different deals. I have the option to select the cheaper deal, the best option deal, or my favorite, the flash deal. The flash deal gives me the option to find discounts that I can only find on GameTime. Once I select the ticket I want, I can view my seat. And it's not just restricted to baseball. I can also look for the best ticket deals for other sports like football, the NBA, concerts, comedy, or other theater shows. Included in my purchase, I also have a 24-hour return guarantee, a lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. And remember, whenever you support this sponsor, you're supporting this channel. Thank you. So what we want to do now is want to play exactly what he had to say, and then we're going to come back and react to his comments. Take a listen to what he had to say about Max Kellerman.
And Max Kellerman was also in that movie. I know you worked with Max quite a bit at ESPN between boxing, ESPN Radio as well. How was working with Max Kellerman overall?
I loved working with Max. It was looking back now, the Friday Night Fights crew was a golden era. We had so much fun, and Max was a blast. He's, my kids call him Uncle Max. He's been a good friend for a long time. And to work with Max in the studio and then have Teddy Atlas, and first it was Bob Papa, then it was Joe Tessitore. And it was even, Max's brother Sam even always said, he goes, you guys are going to look back and say, this was the golden era. And we're like, what do you mean? He goes, no. He goes, the great old days are happening right now with that. And sure enough, he was right. It was so much fun. And to work with those guys, they were real characters. And we got to do it every single week. It was, a fond memory.
Do you know what Uncle Max is up to since leaving ESPN? Like it's so strange seeing and hearing somebody every day for decades, and then all of a sudden they're completely gone from the spotlight. Like even he's not on social media much or anything. Like nobody hears from Max Kellerman, and I do think fans are curious.
I think it's, he's on ice, as they say, as he's, he texted me because I reached out to him after that happened. And I said, geez, that's awful. And he said, hey, look, I'll get paid for doing nothing. That's the best job I've ever had. And, it's so strange in this era of corporate layoffs that they lay you off and you just can't work, but they'll pay you.
Yeah.
But you can't do anything while they're paying you. So that's where he's at. And he will emerge. I think, I don't want to speak for him. I think it's later this year. He'll emerge. And look, he's an intellect. He has a very good way of looking at things. And, he'll be somewhere and he'll be listened to.
So you heard what he had to say, right? That essentially Max Kellerman is there just basically enjoying his money because they still had to pay him. And he is working on returning to the sports media landscape at the end of the year. To be fair, this coincides with what Marcellus Wiley told the channel, that Max Kellerman is just chilling because ESPN got to pay him anyway, but he believes Max Kellerman is going to make a return pretty soon. What do I think about this? Well, as you guys know, there's a vacancy that has taken place on Undisputed. We just recently covered this story some days ago that we heard that FS1 is going to be moving on from Skip Bayless after their 8-year partnership with Skip, and his seat is going to be vacant. But get this, they didn't mention anything about canceling the show. And at the time that news came out, I actually said, man, I think a good replacement on that show for Skip Bayless could be a potential Max Kellerman. And I'm going to give you guys the reason why I think Max Kellerman would be a suitable replacement. Number one, given the fact that there's this kind of mystery surrounding Max. Where's Max? Where's Max? Do you know where he is? Is he coming back? When are we going to see him, right? I think if Max Kellerman were to reemerge on a show like that, replacing Skip Bayless, I think it would bring in a bunch of new viewers. Now, how many new viewers? I don't know, but I think it would generate some level of excitement. That's number one. Number two, I believe that Max Kellerman has the pedigree to do a job like that. Early morning show, because that's essentially what he was doing on ESPN First Take with Stephen A. Smith, this exact kind of debate show, right? So I think it would work perfectly. Number three, Max Kellerman can discuss a range of sports. He can talk football, he can talk basketball, he can talk boxing, he can talk about societal issues, he can talk about golf and all of those things, which is what you need in an analyst and a commentator to replace a Skip Bayless, right? You don't need a specialist that maybe specializes in football, right, and barely knows about other sports, or specializes in basketball and barely knows about other sports. You need someone anchoring the show that has a serviceable amount of knowledge in all of those sports, right? Not to say he needs to be an expert in all of the sports, but he needs to have a solid grasp. So I think you have that going for him. The other reason I think Max would be good for the show is that I think he would be able to kind of push back on some of the points that Keyshawn Johnson and these other guys make. All too often, I feel like Keyshawn and Paul Pierce tend to dominate Skip, and Skip Bayless's voice just kind of gets drowned out. I can see Max Kellerman being a good counterbalance to some of the things that they're saying, right? And I think you need that. You need some type of balance, because at one point, Skip Bayless was looking like the furniture, one of the pieces of furniture on the set. Like, he was just there. Like, he wasn't adding anything to the conversation. He probably speak about a minute or two at best during the segment. And I'm like, but I thought it's Skip's show. So, it wasn't working out in that particular aspect. So that's what I think in terms of him replacing Skip on that show. In terms of coming back into the sports media space, I think that there's still a lot of room, right? I think that Max would definitely do good on TV. I definitely believe so. And I think that, who knows, maybe they can bring him back on one of those FS1 shows. I don't see him going back to ESPN, given the fact that they already got rid of him. They didn't want him to work there anymore. So I don't see how that would work. But I think that he could probably find a position on FS1. This is just my view. That's how I see it. Maybe that's the way I want it to be, but that's just how I see it. So the question to the audience is this. Number one, do you think Max Kellerman is going to make a return to sports media this year? One. Number two, do you think Max Kellerman would be a good replacement for Skip Bayless on Undisputed? Number three, if you don't think that's the best place for him, where would you like to see Max Kellerman? What network would you like to see Max Kellerman on? Whatever you guys think and feel, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section, and we'll catch you guys on the next show. Peace.